My name is Olivia Smith. I'm 35 years old and I'm a registered nurse at Memorial General Hospital. On the evening of my birthday, I came home to find my entire family waiting for me in my living room. They weren't holding cake, they were holding an eviction notice. But here's what nobody tells you about betrayal. The paperwork isn't the part that destroys you. It's the smile on your father's face when he hands it to you. It's the way your mother won't meet your eyes. It's your brother cracking his knuckles like he's been waiting for this moment his entire life. It's your sister filming it on her phone for content. I stood in the doorway of the house I'd been paying for, alone, for 8 years, holding a piece of paper that said I had 30 days to vacate. And I remember thinking, they actually believe I'm going to cry? I didn't cry. I smiled. I thanked them for coming. I even offered to make coffee. And that's when I saw it. Just a flicker. The confusion in my father's eyes. He'd expected tears. He'd expected begging. He'd expected me to crumble the way I always had before. Instead, I walked to my kitchen, opened my bullet journal, the one I'd been keeping religiously since nursing school, and I wrote a single line. March 15th. They showed me exactly who they are. Time to show them who I've become. What my family didn't know was that for the past 2 years, every conversation they'd had in my house had been recorded. Every scheme, every manipulation, every moment they thought I was too busy, too tired, too weak to notice. They were wrong. Before we dive into how I set myself free, please take a moment to like and subscribe. But only if you truly enjoy this story. And I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your city below in the comments. Now let me take you back to where it all began. I need you to understand something about my family before I tell you how they tried to destroy me. There was a time when I would have done anything for them. Anything. I was the middle child. Derek was the golden boy, even when he failed at everything. Jessica was the baby, the princess who could do no wrong, and I was the dependable one, the one who worked double shifts so Dad could invest in Derek's 4th failed business, the one who paid for Mom's spa weekends when she was stressed, the one who sent money for Jessica's photography equipment, her ring lights, her sponsored post outfits. I told myself it was love. I told myself that family takes care of family. 8 years ago, when I was 27 and finally stable in my nursing career, Dad called me into his study. He had that serious look he got when he wanted something. "Olivia," he said, "your grandmother Helen wants to help you buy a house." Grandma Helen had always been my favorite, sharp as a tack even in her 70s back then, fiercely independent and the only person in my family who ever asked how I was doing without following it up with a request for money. "She's setting aside some funds," Dad continued, "but there's a way to make this work better for everyone. I'll co-sign, we'll put my name on the deed too, just for the mortgage approval process. Once you're established, we'll transfer it fully to you." I should have questioned it, but he was my father, and I was so tired of renting, so tired of having nothing to show for all those extra shifts. I remember the day we closed on the house. It was a 3-bedroom craftsman in a quiet suburb with a front porch and a backyard big enough for the garden I'd always wanted. Grandma Helen came to the signing. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "This is yours, baby girl," she whispered. "You earned this." I believed her. For the first 2 years, everything seemed normal. I painted the walls, I planted tomatoes and herbs in the back, I worked my night shifts at the hospital and came home to something that was mine. My family visited occasionally. Mom would comment on my furniture choices. Jessica would take photos in my backyard for her Instagram. Derek would ask to borrow the garage for his storage. I said yes to everything because that's what I'd always done. When I was 29, I noticed the mortgage statements were only in my name. I asked Dad about removing his name from the deed like we'd discussed. "Soon," he said. "Let's wait until you have more equity built up. It'll be cleaner that way." I trusted him. When I was 31, I installed security cameras after someone broke into my neighbor's house. Ring doorbell, cameras in the living room and kitchen pointed at entry points, cloud storage for everything. I told my family about them. For safety, I explained. Dad nodded approvingly. Smart girl, he said. If only I'd known then what I know now. He wasn't praising my intelligence. He was calculating how to work around it. The changes started about 18 months before my 35th birthday. Small things at first. Derek began showing up unannounced, always when he knew I was at work. He'd text me after. Stopped by to check on the house, left some boxes in the garage, hope that's cool. It was never cool, but I never said anything. Mom started making comments about the neighborhood. It's getting so expensive around here, she'd say, running her finger along my kitchen counter. Houses are selling for $300,000-$400,000. Can you imagine? I could imagine. I'd been paying the mortgage, every single payment for 8 years, and watching the property value climb. But something in the way she said it made my stomach turn. Jessica visited one Sunday afternoon with her phone already recording. Give my followers a house tour, she chirped. They love seeing how normal people live. Normal people, as if my 12-hour shifts and student loans were a lifestyle choice. I watched her stories later that night. She'd filmed everything. My bedroom, my bathroom, the deed and mortgage papers I kept in a folder on my desk. She'd zoomed in on them. The comments were full of her followers gushing about manifestation and abundance. But there was one comment from an account with no profile picture. Nice place. Would be a shame if something happened to it. I reported it, blocked the account, tried to forget about it. But I couldn't forget the conversation I'd overheard 3 months before my birthday. I'd come home early from a shift that got canceled, exhausted and just wanting to sleep. I was about to unlock my front door when I heard voices inside. My family. All of them. I should have walked in. Instead, I stood there on my own porch, listening. She's not going to just give it up, Jessica was saying. She's attached to this place. She doesn't have a choice. That was Derek. Dad's name is still on the deed. Legally, he has every right. But morally, Mom started. Morally, Derek laughed. She's been living here for 8 years paying basically nothing while property values skyrocketed. She should be grateful we're giving her 30 days. My father's voice was calm, measured. We present it as a family decision for Helen's care. The medical bills are piling up. We need to liquidate assets. Olivia will understand. Grandma Helen's care. The grandmother who'd helped me buy this house. The grandmother I visited every Sunday at her assisted living facility, bringing her favorite butterscotch candies and sitting with her for hours. I walked around the block twice before I came home. When I unlocked the door, they were all sitting in my living room watching TV like nothing had happened. There she is, Dad boomed. We were just talking about having a family reunion soon. Summer's coming up. What do you think about hosting it here? I looked at each of them. Derek lounging on my couch like he owned it, Jessica scrolling through her phone, Mom knitting with yarn I'd bought her for Christmas, Dad smiling that smile I'd trusted my entire life. Sure, I said, that sounds great. That night, I reviewed my security footage. The cameras had caught everything, every word, every conspiratorial glance, every moment they thought I was too stupid, too tired, too compliant to notice. I backed up the files to 3 separate cloud accounts, and I waited. March 15th, my 35th birthday. I'd worked a double shift the night before, 16 hours in the ICU, 3 critical patients, 1 death I couldn't prevent no matter how hard I tried. I drove home as the sun was rising, my scrubs still smelling like hospital disinfectant and my own exhaustion. All I wanted was a shower and 12 hours of sleep. Instead, I found 4 cars parked in my driveway. The door was unlocked, of course it was. Dad still had a key. They were all there, sitting in my living room, waiting. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," Mom said. She wasn't smiling. Dad stood up. He was holding a folder. "We need to talk." I set down my bag. "Okay." "This isn't easy for any of us," he began, "but we've made a family decision for Helen's care. Grandma Helen's care costs are covered by her insurance and her savings," I interrupted. "I reviewed her financial statements with her last Sunday. She's fine." Dad's eye twitched, just barely. "The point is, we need to liquidate some assets. This house has appreciated significantly, with my name on the deed." "Co-ownership that was supposed to be temporary," I said quietly. "Legal is legal," Derek cut in. He was enjoying this. "And legally, Dad can make decisions about this property." Jessica was filming. I watched her angle her phone to get both me and Dad in the frame. "We're selling the house," Dad said. "You have 30 days to vacate. We've already contacted a realtor. The market's hot. We should clear close to $400,000 after the mortgage is paid off." The mortgage I'd been paying, alone, for 8 years. "And my share?" I asked. Silence. Then Mom laughed, actually laughed. "Honey, you've been living here basically rent-free. Consider it paid back." I'd paid $247,000 in mortgage payments over 8 years. I'd paid for every repair, every upgrade, every property tax bill. I'd built the equity they were planning to steal. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked. Derek shrugged. "You're a nurse. Get an apartment. It's what normal people do." Normal people. There was that phrase again. Jessica was still filming, probably thinking this would make good content for her real-life series. Mom was watching me like I was a child about to throw a tantrum she'd have to manage. Derek looked bored, checking his watch. And Dad was looking at me with something close to pity. "You understand, right, Olivia?" he said. "This is just business, nothing personal." Nothing personal. 8 years of mortgage payments, nothing personal. Every holiday I'd worked so they could have celebrations, nothing personal. Every dollar I'd sent, every favor I'd done, every time I'd put their needs before my own, nothing personal. I looked at each of them, my family, the people who were supposed to love me, and I smiled. "I understand," I said. "I understand perfectly." I picked up the eviction notice, read it carefully, noted the attorney's name, someone local, probably cheap. "Is there anything else?" I asked. They looked confused. They'd been expecting tears, screaming, begging. "That's it," Dad said slowly. "We'll need your keys by April 15th. "Okay, well, I just worked a double shift. I'm going to bed. You can let yourselves out." I walked to my bedroom, closed the door, and listened to them whispering in my living room, confused, uncertain, wondering why I hadn't fought back. I waited until I heard their cars pull away. Then I opened my laptop and started downloading security footage. Every conversation, every scheme, every moment they'd plotted against me in my own home. And I began to plan. I'm going to stop here for a second. If this story is resonating with you at all, or if you've ever felt the pain of being misunderstood by the people who are supposed to love you most, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It really lets me know that sharing these hard stories is worth it. The first thing I did was call Grandma Helen. "They told you I need expensive medical care?" she asked. Her voice was sharp, alert, angry. "They said they need to liquidate assets for your bills." She swore. I'd never heard my grandmother swear before. "Olivia, I'm fine. My insurance covers everything, and even if it didn't, I'd rather die in a ditch than let them do this to you." "I know, Grandma. What are you going to do?" I looked at my bulletin board where I'd started mapping everything out. Security footage timestamps, bank records showing every mortgage payment I'd made, email threads I'd found on the shared family iCloud. Yes, they'd been that stupid, discussing the sale. I'm going to let them think they won, I said. Good girl, Grandma Helen said. Burn them down. The second thing I did was consult an attorney, not the cheap one Dad had used, a real estate attorney named Margaret Winters who had a reputation for eating people like my father for breakfast. I brought her everything, the deed showing the co-ownership, 8 years of mortgage statements, every single one paid solely by me, the security footage, the emails, text messages where Derek discussed getting that house money. Margaret watched the footage in silence. When it ended, she looked at me over her glasses. "This is fraud," she said. "Potential elder abuse given your grandmother's involvement, financial exploitation, and possibly criminal conspiracy depending on how deep this goes. What are my options?" We file suit immediately. Unjust enrichment, breach of fiduciary duty, we get an emergency injunction to prevent the sale, and, she smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile, we go after damages. How long will it take? To stop the sale? I can file by tomorrow. To actually resolve this? Could be months. But, Olivia, there's something else you could do. I waited. Your family reunion is in 6 weeks, correct? The one they asked to host at your house? Yes. What if you let them proceed with their plans, let them feel secure, let them think you've given up, gather more evidence, let them incriminate themselves further. Then at the reunion, we present everything, not in court, to them, to everyone they know, make it very clear that their next conversation will be with law enforcement. I thought about Derek's face when he'd called me a freeloader, Jessica's phone recording my humiliation, Mom's laugh, Dad's pity. Tell me more, I said. The next 6 weeks were the strangest of my life. On the outside, I played the role they expected. Defeated, compliant, searching apartments I had no intention of renting, packing boxes I had no intention of moving. I even apologized to Dad. I understand this is just business, I said. No hard feelings. He patted my shoulder. That's my girl. I knew you'd come around. You've always been the reasonable one. Reasonable, compliant, useful. Meanwhile, Margaret was building our case. We had 17 separate instances of my family discussing the sale on my security footage. We had proof that Dad had promised to transfer the deed fully to me within 2 years, in an email from 8 years ago that he'd forgot existed. We had financial records showing I paid 100% of all costs associated with the house. And we had something else. Evidence that Dad had been manipulating Grandma Helen's medical power of attorney to access her accounts without her knowledge. Small amounts, nothing she'd miss, but illegal nonetheless. Jessica's constant posting about the upcoming family reunion at our house made it all better. She'd created a Facebook event, invited extended family, family friends, neighbors. She was documenting everything, the planning, the shopping, her excitement about bringing the family together. She had no idea she was creating a witness list. Derek had already spent his share of the house money, at least in his mind. He'd put a deposit on Alexis, booked a vacation to Cancun, told his friends his investment finally paid off. Mom had picked out new furniture for their condo. Finally upgrading, she'd told her book club. Our daughter's house sale is giving us the freedom to live a little. And Dad had the entire sale planned, closing date set for April 20th, realtor lined up. He'd even lowballed the price to ensure a quick sale, which meant even more evidence of his intent to defraud me. They thought they'd won. They had no idea I'd been documenting everything.
People think revenge is about anger. It's not. It's about clarity. During those 6 weeks, I did something I'd never done before. I put myself first. I started therapy, real therapy, not just the employee assistance program at the hospital. Dr. Sarah Chen specialized in family trauma and narcissistic abuse. She didn't tell me to forgive. She didn't tell me to let it go. She told me to trust myself. You've spent 35 years managing their emotions, she said during our third session. What would it feel like to let them manage their own? I cried for the first time since the eviction notice, not because I was sad, because the permission to stop caretaking them felt like someone had lifted a building off my chest. I started journaling differently, not just tracking expenses and shifts, but feelings, memories, patterns I'd never let myself see before. Like the time I was 14 and made the honor roll, and Dad said, "That's great, honey," without looking up from Derek's failed math test. Or the time I was 16 and worked all summer to buy my own prom dress because Mom had spent the budget on Jessica's dance recital costumes. Or the time I was 22 and covered Derek's rent for 3 months, and he never said thank you, just asked if I could do 4. Little cuts, death by 1,000 tiny betrayals. Dr. Chen called it parentification. I called it my entire childhood. I started saying no, small no's at first. No, I couldn't cover an extra shift so someone else could go to their kid's recital. I had plans. No, I couldn't lend Jessica money for her new camera lens. No, I wouldn't discuss the house sale because my attorney had advised against it. That last one made Dad nervous. "You hired an attorney?" I said calmly. "Just to review the paperwork, make sure everything's legal." I could see him calculating. But he was too arrogant to believe I'd actually fight back. I'd never fought back before. I visited Grandma Helen every Sunday, like always. She was sharper than ever, angry on my behalf in a way that made me love her even more. "When this is over, I'm changing my will," she said. "They won't see a dime." "You don't have to do that, Grandma." "Oh, I want to," she said. "I want them to know exactly what their greed cost them." 2 weeks before the reunion, Margaret called me into her office. "We have enough," she said. "We could stop this now, file the injunction, stop the sale, sue for damages. But if you want maximum impact, if you want them to truly understand what they've done, we wait. We let them have their party, we let them celebrate, and then we show them exactly who they've been dealing with." I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. "We wait," I said. I spent the week before the reunion preparing something special, a 12-minute video compilation. It opened with me speaking directly to the camera. "To my family," I said, "thank you for teaching me the difference between who people pretend to be and who they actually are." Then it was all footage, chronological, every conversation they'd had in my house about stealing it, every scheme, every insult, every moment they underestimated me. Set to music, professionally edited, with timestamps and captions for clarity. The final frame was a letter from Margaret's law firm outlining the fraud, the lawsuit, and the potential criminal charges. I watched it 7 times. Each time, I felt stronger. This wasn't about hurting them. This was about showing them I was done being invisible. April 12th. 3 days before they expected me to vacate. The backyard looked beautiful, I had to give Jessica that. String lights, catered food, a projector screen set up for family photos. That projector screen was about to get very different content. 40 people showed up. Extended family, family friends, neighbors. Everyone Jessica had invited to witness what she thought would be a celebration. Dad made a speech about family bonds and coming together. Mom dabbed at fake tears. Derek clinked his beer bottle against mine like we were friends. Jessica was recording everything. "Speech, speech," someone called out. Everyone looked at me. I stood up, smiled. "I just want to thank everyone for coming. Family means everything to me, always has. And I think it's important that we're all honest with each other. So I prepared a little video. A tribute, you could say, to exactly who we are as a family." I nodded to my friend Marcus, who was running the projector. The projector lit up. My face appeared. "To my family, thank you for teaching me the difference between who people pretend to be and who they actually are." Then the footage started. I watched Dad's face drain of color as his own voice filled the backyard. She doesn't have a choice. Legally, he has every right. Mom's hands froze mid-knitting when her laugh echoed through the speakers. "Honey, you've been living here basically rent-free." Derek stood up, beer forgotten, as his voice boomed, "She should be grateful we're giving her 30 days. Jessica's phone clattered to the ground as her own words played, "Would be a shame if something happened to it." The footage played on. Every scheme, every insult, every calculation. The backyard was silent except for the video. When it ended with Margaret's letter detailing fraud, unjust enrichment, elder abuse, and pending legal action, you could have heard a pin drop. I stood up again. "The sale is canceled," I said calmly. "An injunction was filed 3 hours ago. The deed is being transferred entirely into my name by court order. I've also filed a suit for 8 years of mortgage payments plus damages. And Grandma Helen, whose medical care you claim to be funding, sends her regards. She's fine, by the way. Her attorney is reviewing whether to press charges for the unauthorized access to her accounts." I looked at each of them. Dad, frozen. Mom, crying real tears now. Derek, red-faced with rage. Jessica, for once, not filming. "You're welcome to stay and enjoy the party," I said calmly, "but this is my house, and you're all trespassing." Nobody moved. "Get out," I said quietly. They left, all of them, 40 people filing out of my backyard in shocked silence. I stood there alone under the string lights, listening to car doors slam, engines start, tires on gravel. Marcus came over and handed me a glass of wine. "Hell of a party," he said. I laughed, actually laughed. Yeah, it really was.
The lawsuit took 4 months to settle. Margaret was ruthless. She had documentation of every mortgage payment I'd made, $247,000 total. She had the security footage. She had emails proving Dad's intent to defraud. She had expert witnesses who testified about property law and unjust enrichment. Dad's cheap attorney took one look at the evidence and recommended immediate settlement. They paid me back every dollar I'd put into the house, plus interest, plus my legal fees, plus damages for emotional distress. The total came to just over $310,000. The deed was transferred entirely into my name. No co-ownership, no strings, just me. Grandma Helen's attorney did press charges for the unauthorized account access. Dad paid restitution and got probation. No jail time, but it went on his record. Every background check for the rest of his life would show it. Derek had to sell the Lexus he couldn't afford. Jessica lost half her followers when someone leaked the full story. Turned out people don't like influencers who plot to steal houses. Mom had to return the furniture. But the real consequence? I never spoke to any of them again. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Dr. Chen helped me understand something crucial. Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. I could forgive them for being who they were and still choose to protect myself from who they would always be. 6 months after the reunion, I painted my house. Not the neutral beiges they'd always suggested. Deep teals, warm terracottas, a sunshine yellow in the kitchen that made me smile every morning. I expanded my garden, tomatoes, herbs, flowers I planted just because they were beautiful. I adopted a dog, a rescue terrier named Mabel, who barked at the mailman and slept on my bed and loved me unconditionally. I made friends, real friends. People who showed up when I needed them and celebrated my wins without jealousy. Marcus introduced me to his book club. Sarah from work invited me to her kid's birthday party. I joined a hiking group and spent Sundays on trails instead of at assisted living facilities making excuses for people who didn't deserve them. I still worked at the hospital, still pulled night shifts, still came home exhausted, but now I came home to a space that was fully, legally, completely mine. The security cameras came down. I didn't need them anymore. I wasn't living defensively. I was living intentionally. Grandma Helen did change her will. She left everything to charity except for one item, her mother's ring, which came to me. I wear it every day. She died 2 years after the reunion, peacefully, with me holding her hand. You did good, baby girl. You learned the most important lesson.
Not everyone who shares your blood deserves your loyalty. At her funeral, my family showed up. We didn't speak. They sat on one side of the chapel. I sat on the other with my real family, the friends who'd proven their love through actions, not words. Here's something nobody tells you about cutting off toxic family. You don't just lose them. You lose the future you imagined. I'd always pictured nieces and nephews I'd spoil, holiday dinners where I'd host, a family that grew and evolved but stayed connected. That future died the day I played that video, and I grieved it, truly grieved it. Dr. Chen helped me understand that I wasn't mourning the family I had. I was mourning the family I desperately wanted them to be. You can grieve what you never had, she told me. That's valid. So I did. I let myself be sad. I let myself miss the idea of them, even while knowing the reality would always disappoint. But I also learned something beautiful. Family is a verb, not a noun. The people who showed up after the reunion, Marcus, who helped me move furniture, Sarah, who brought me dinner for a week because she knew I was struggling, the neighbor who invited me to her daughter's graduation because you're part of the neighborhood now. Those were my family, the ones who chose me when they didn't have to. And eventually, I built something I'd never had before. Peace. Not happiness every day, not a perfect life, but peace. The kind that comes from knowing you're safe in your own home because you fought for it. It's been 3 years since that reunion. 3 years since I stood in my backyard and showed my family exactly who I'd become when they weren't paying attention. People ask me if I regret it, if I wish I'd handled it differently, if I miss them. The answer is no. Because here's what I learned. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. I don't hate my family. I don't think about them enough to hate them. I think about the garden I'm planting, the promotion I earned at work, the trip to Iceland I'm planning, the writing class I joined, the life I built on my own terms. They taught me something valuable, though they didn't mean to. I don't need anyone's permission to take up space. I don't need anyone's approval to value myself. And I definitely don't need anyone who sees my kindness as weakness. My house, the one they tried to steal, is worth about $475,000 now, but its value to me is immeasurable because it represents something they can never take away, proof that I can trust myself. Every mortgage payment I make is a choice, not an obligation. Every room I paint is mine. Every friend I invite over chooses to be here. And on quiet mornings, when I'm drinking coffee on the porch they wanted to sell, watching Mabel chase squirrels in the yard I cultivated, I think about the woman I was 3 years ago. The one who stood in a doorway holding an eviction notice, deciding whether to break or bend. I bent, but not in surrender. I bent like a bow bends, pulling back, gathering strength, aiming carefully. And when I released, I didn't miss. To my family, wherever you are, thank you for teaching me that blood doesn't make family. Love does. Loyalty does. Showing up does. And to everyone watching who's ever felt invisible in their own life, you're not weak for staying as long as you did. You're not broken for feeling what you feel. And you're not wrong for finally choosing yourself. You're just finally awake. And that, more than any revenge, is the real victory. Have you ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect you? How did you rebuild trust? What's one thing you learned about yourself after a betrayal? Share one moment in your healing journey that changed everything. This was another story from Revenge Room, where we turn pain into purpose and betrayal into balance. Please don't forget to subscribe and join us for the next transformation.